We're here to discuss the history of Japan and see how people in society feel today. This documentary will go through the culture and past, see what has continued and changed in Japan for this segment of National Geographic's Cultural Exploration. We'd like to begin by seeing how the arts are viewed in the country. We can see how people value their arts from the past as a continuation through the living national treasures of Japan and the protection through the Japanese law for the protection of cultural properties. An example of structures that are protected would be the Himeji Castle. In literature, one of the first novels created takes its home in Japan and is named The Tale of Genji. The author, Murasaki Shikibu, has been debated as to being the true author. This author was a noble woman living in the 11th century. It is sometimes called the world's first novel. It has been under debate if she is actually the author, but in some of her diary entries she referred to the story. She was able to accomplish a lot as a woman. Now it is time to interview two civilians on the perspective of this country. Konnichiwa, Niharika-san.
Konnichiwa, John Paul.
Konnichiwa, Kathleen-san.
Konnichiwa, JP-san.
I'm glad to have you. So, as a modern citizen, how do you view the religious spectrum of your country?
Well, I know that many of the views have been borrowed from neighboring cultures. Zen plays a role which stresses simplicity and straightforwardness, which then derived wabi-sabi, which appreciates the past. Wabi-sabi allows people to appreciate what they have rather than what they want. It stresses the graceful aging of things. It is more of taste and lavish villas versus satisfied hunger and a place to live.
Are there any other philosophies that you are aware of?
Most people believe that Taoism is a philosophy, but Taoism took more apart on alchemy, procrastination, and folk medicine. It wasn't really used as a philosophy. Since Japan has a variety of beliefs, unlike other cultures, we don't have a main literature that is used, like the Bible or the Quran. We also incorporated Western ideas within our culture starting in the 19th century, and we continue to do that today.
That's very interesting. Another subject I would like to discuss with you is how you see the roles of honor and respect today.
Honor and respect are still very important to the people in Japan today. In Japanese, there are surnames and words that show respect, such as adding san at the end of someone's name.
Thank you for your time and input. I would like to talk to our other guests now.
Hello, John Paul. Thank you for having me on your show.
No, thank you, madam. First, I would like to gather your opinions in regard to the empirical era of Japan and how the modern population views this benchmark of Japanese history.
The people of Japan highly celebrate events of those times and also celebrate the many different emperors that ruled Japan during these times. Many of the Japanese people of today know that these people were just figureheads, but they still appreciate those who were ahead of our politics.
And what does the public think about the fairly recent government change that occurred in 1947? Do the Japanese people prefer the former government?
Well, most of the people of Japan are highly grateful for this change and prefer this government over the fascist dictatorship that the people were subject to prior to the 1947 Constitution of Japan. Under the current constitutional monarchy, the people of Japan are fairly represented and improve the rights of Japanese women.
Concepts were about the changing government that have maybe established present trends of the government.
The news and ideas brought to fruition by the Western world and other representative governments really brought a wand for the change in the people of Japan. They wanted to grow and establish their country as a large and unified world power. Because of this, the people have a very warm reception to the new government, and they prefer to focus on the people versus this excessive sovereignty of the dictators.
How does the population view the very controversial involvement of World War II and the political actions taken at the time?
Well, most of the people see the involvement of Japan in the war as something that should have never happened and view it as a blemish in the history of Japan. The effects of the war, such as the atomic bombings on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, are still felt today, and this is part of the reason why the decision for war is greatly disliked. At the time, many of the people of Japan felt like they didn't have a specific or unified political ruler. and were bombarded by the highly aggressive political stance.
About Japan's involvement in World War II.
Actually, our textbooks are mandated to exclude such occurrences such as Pearl Harbor. Conservative movements want to get rid of information that might disturb school children. They don't want to give them anything to be upset over. However, many people do not agree with this approach. The revised textbooks were not used in schools.
When Japan was culturally assimilating itself with other countries, how did it regard those countries?
Well, we Japanese always have our own sense of nationalism. However, we openly welcome information and methods. We were simply taking information from our neighbors. Cultures spread among countries, and that is what happened here. Today, we are a major world power and serve as an aid provider to India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and many other South Asian nations. After World War II, we extinguished enmity with other nations and stressed friendships.
We had become a full member of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD, by 1966. We had many amicable ties globally, economically. Prime Minister Kai-fu even gave aid to developing countries such as Brunei, Indonesia, the Philippines, and Thailand, and produced a partnership with the Association of Southeast Asian Countries, or ASEAN. Prime Minister Kai-fu was also responsible for calling for the settlement of the Kashmir dispute between India and Pakistan. To enforce it, Japan has even offered a loan to India. We have rewritten many nations' fear of a repeat of a World War II Japan.
That's all we have time for today, and I would like to end by saying that Japan is both very proud of its past and has definitely learned from it. Thank you two for coming. Next time on National Geographics, we will be discussing Hitler behind the stash.